Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show, where we dive deep into the truths that shape extraordinary leaders. I just wrapped up this incredible conversation with Edward Pritchett, and let me tell you, you're not going to want to miss this one. We talked about what does it actually mean to create generational wealth, and more importantly, what does it mean to be a generational breaker? How do we look at the things that we've experienced and leverage those so that it gives us the ability to build the life that we actually want? Edward talked to us about his role as a father and a husband and somebody who's created a multi-million-dollar business. We didn't even talk about the business because he shared where is he at today and what are the things that he still actively has to pursue to break on a daily basis in order to build the life that he wants. And I am excited for you to be able to hear what he shared and how when he focuses daily, not on measuring all the things we're accustomed to, but really measuring his impact and his influence with those people that he loves most, how that has actually led to him building the life that he wants. This episode is packed with raw honesty and actionable insights and a perspective that we believe is going to challenge the way that we think and force us to rethink what it means to lead authentically. Let's jump in. Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show, where we explore the collision of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly impactful career. I'm your host, Rocky Garza, and with over a decade of experience as a coach, consultant, and keynote speaker to many Fortune 500 companies, I'm here to share personal stories and expert advice to help you gain clarity, build confidence, and discover that you too can build the life you actually want. Whether you're a high achiever looking for a more full life or a leader striving for professional success with purpose, this podcast was designed with you in mind. Thank you, Edward, man. I so appreciate you being on the show.
After hearing you speak multiple times and like looking at you saying like, I want to be like that guy. I've always found like, if I want to be like somebody in any aspect of my life, is like, how can I get around them more often? And if being able to share in this format allows me to do that, hey, let's do it. Let's jump in and have some fun with it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Well, we're just going to jump straight into it. So for us here, the hope and the goal is like, I love having real conversations with real human beings about real life and not the sort of the frivolous parts of the things that maybe not you and I, but we know everybody else on the internet, the frivolous things that we think people want to see, the things that we think will make us appropriate or experts, or I think we try really hard here to steer away from expertise and to steer into experience. I trust that anybody who has a job of any kind, especially as a business owner, you have some kind of expertise or people probably aren't buying it. So we're gonna sort of let that be that we're gonna trust that's the case. So I would love to know, just if you'll kick us off, and it's gonna be really open-ended, but just tell me about you. And you can go back as far as like, I was born in, if you want to, I don't care where you go with it, but just tell me about you.
Well, I mean, I think that's always a fun place to start because people connect with people who are from where they're from. I was actually born in Mobile, Alabama. So there's just a handful of people that can say, yeah, Mobile, Alabama, I even know where that is. But, I think the biggest thing for me is like, I was born into a family that was blessed with an incredible amount of knowledge. We had the knowledge, there were principles, just success looked like it was written all over. But internally, the financial side, I feel like I had a very happy home. I had a very happy life. And I share this because I think a lot of people are in this play. I had a very happy life, but that financial piece always seemed to be missing. As happy as the home was, as much as we believed in ourselves, I have 3 younger siblings, 2 parents that love me, no complaints about any of that. But it was like, I was the kid who in elementary school, when everybody had Nikes, I got to go to Payless shoe store. I think they still exist. Like, Payless is cool now. But back then, like, Payless was not the cool place to go shopping.
It wasn't cool.
I heard it was cool now. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Getting the knockoff Nikes and drawing your own little swoosh on it. That was the kind of, and my mom was like, oh, nobody's going to notice. Everybody noticed. That was a piece that some people will allow to twist you into thinking like that's the only way our family is ever going to be. But I've also been blessed with opportunity and exposure to individuals like yourself who have shown me over my last 20 years in my career life, post-high school, post-college, that anything really is possible. And I've been able to kind of attach and figure out, like, here are those couple of things that we had most of the principles, but it's like when you put in a 75 cents for a dollar Coke machine, you're still not gonna get a Coke, even though you put 75 cents in. Like, you got to put the full dollar in, right? Like, we've all heard that before. And that's something that I started to realize in my mid-20s, that like I had most of it, but I had to put that last quarter in. And to be exposed to people that have been able to guide me and walk beside me along that, and to be able to add a lot of value to others, which is why I get to see value come back, not just on the financial side, but value come back in relationships, value come back in time spent with my family, value come back in experiential situations, like being able to travel the world and see amazing things because of where my career has led me and the people that it's exposed me to. Like, that's my life. Like, if I was to sum it all up, it's like that's where it started, and it could have just stayed there. But thankfully, I listened to some wise people, some wise men and women who were like, here's the quarter that you were missing. I was able to put that in, and then all sorts of value starts coming out because I had paid the full price. So that'd be how, if I was going to sum everything up, put it in one little package. I mean, that's why I'm where I'm at today, and why I like doing this, being able to share, because it's not that most people are missing is this much.
Take me to a time, if you can. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but take me to a time, if you can. You said something really interesting. You talked about, and I'm going to give a recap. Stop me at any point that you're like, no, my guy, you did get it right. But, you're Mobile, Alabama, growing up, oldest of four, so 75 cents, close to the dollar. We got it. We're right there. Something's missing. Is there a moment or moments you can think through where you go, I remember being at this place and sort of had a very visceral, where's the quarter? Like a very visceral, like, I'm so close. I can see what I want. I could almost taste it. I don't know how. And I know that you sort of walked us towards the end of the story and said, if I surround myself with the right people and listen, and I think that I could not agree with you more. And I think those of us that are missing this piece, right? Those of us that are missing this small thing, I think we're looking, we end up, let's go metaphorical here. I think we end up chasing the wishing well, looking for somebody else's quarter at the bottom of the pond, trying to figure out how we go down there and get the quarter that somebody else seemingly so easily throws away. But there's a quarter for us someplace. Is there a moment that you can think back, you go, that's when I realized I'm a quarter short? And what was that like, if you can sort of think through that?
Yeah, I can think very specifically of 2 times. And I think that's part of it too. Like, you have to come to that point. Like, if you never had that realization point, like, what soul searching do you need to stop and do for a second so that you can get to that point? Because in my opinion, it's tied up in ego. I've had a mentor says the most expensive thing people own is their ego. And, there was a point when I had the 75 cents, like, it was there, I was just like, well, it's just a matter of time, and like, I deserve it. And I've read all the books, right? Like, I've shown up, I've done, and I can go back as far as, because my parents were involved in the multi-level marketing world when I was in high school, right? And I thought, like, like all the teaching, positive psychology, the secret, like all that was like, I'm doing all this stuff and like dream building and the dream vision boards and like doing it all, but like nothing's happening. And I had a moment as I was getting ready to go to college where I realized, the reason nothing is happening is there's something that is missing. And at that time, I chose to blame it on others around me. Like, there's something they're not telling me. And that remained stuck in my mind for probably the next 5 or 6 years. So I go to college, and that's what I was looking for, right? Like, my college experience was like, I'm looking for this thing. Like, I kind of got a little bit bitter and mad and angry, right? I think we all kind of do a little bit. Like, in high school, my parents didn't tell me everything in the world, and now I'm finding out about this other stuff. Going through college looking for, like, what's that missing piece? But what kept repeating itself is the more I kept blaming, the more I kept finding myself in ruts and like trying to do it one way, and it wasn't my way. Graduated, was out in the world, and what happened was the Great Recession. And this was time number 2. I graduated from college in 2005, went to Yale University, had a degree in chemical engineering. I was very employable. So like, oh, that sounded like I could get a job. I had a job, but then I thought I thought I was doing, again, everything right. Great recession hits, and I had another great thing to blame, right? Here's a recession that I didn't cause. It's caused by this subprime mortgage mess and yada, yada, yada. And now I don't have a job anymore, and I'm getting ready to lose all my stuff, once again. Like I thought I had put in the whole dollar, but then I had someone at the right time. I was low enough in how I was feeling about myself. Said, there are people that are still thriving right now. Let me show you a couple.
Mm.
Let's talk about what they're doing. Like, what are you choosing to do right now versus what they're doing?
Mm.
And I don't know if it was just that I was low enough. I was willing to let go of it. It's not my fault. I'm doing everything right. And they're able to say, no, you know what? There's still something I have not chosen to see, or I have not chosen. That's why I'm still repeating this cycle that I've seen played out in other people's lives that I believed in, that I trusted. And again, not their fault, their fault, right? Like there's something they didn't see and then I got stuck in the same, right? Like we repeat the habits. Love my father. I love my dad. He works with me. Okay. So this is not a negative thing on him, but like there is something about the sins of the father. Like what we're taught by our parents and grandparents, that kind of stuff, the reason it passes generationally is because that's who we learn from. And if there are things that maybe they never got past, maybe that means that's why you're wondering why you're stuck, right? They talk about generational curses, and everybody's these days is talking about, I'm doing stuff to build generational wealth. Well, why are we talking about it in that sense? We're talking about that in that sense is because we have to break something that was wrong about how maybe our parents and our grandparents did. And it doesn't have to be wealth, just financial, right? We could be talking about relational wealth. We could be talking about experiential wealth. There's a whole bunch of don't just get caught up on money, right? Money was one thing I was certainly thinking about, but it wasn't just that. Like I wanted to be able to travel the world, right? Like I had some exposure, but I wanted more of it. So that individual kind of shared with me at that moment, was like, there's something that you're like, what is it that you need to realize about you, your willingness to work? Like you're not entitled to anything just yet. Just because you follow these success principles doesn't mean that it just flows to you. What have you done for it to work through you? Like, there was this idea that I had. It was like, well, if I just do it, then it happens. And that kind of took all the responsibility off of me, right? Like I didn't have to do anything. I do certain things. And that's what people talk about, stuff like The Secret. It's like, I just think about it, and law of attraction, it comes to me. That's not the end of the story, right? The ideal is that, I do these principles, and allow those principles, I'll allow that law of attraction to work through me, like I have to do something. Okay. Right. And that was where I got caught up on that. And that second time where after that, man, like that was the turning point,
Sure.
post the Great Recession, I started doing things differently and still having challenges. Right. But man, stuff started to happen. Right? To go in the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think everything you said, I think listeners are hearing this and they're going like, yes. Every time you finish a sentence, I think someone's going like, that is exactly how I feel. Tell me, because I think in my experience, this is sort of how I learn the most, and I think I'm finding others learn as well. So you talked about, there's this moment your family had knowledge that led to the realization there's things that I know, and then there's things that I realize, and then because there's things I realize, that typically leads to action. However, from post-realization, pre-action, this little window we have in here is where the ego comes in, because we go, I have the knowledge and I have a realization I should do this thing. And then we don't do the thing because we go, nah, it's their fault. I shouldn't have to do the thing. It should just work because I read the book and I followed the principles, and therefore I should. And then fill in the gap of whatever we want success to be, right? Yeah. You said then what happens is ego gets in the way. We tend to blame other people, and you shared your experience about that, so I appreciate that. And we tend to want to do things our way, not necessarily the way, and then we get caught up. And that we find ourselves in this space of breaking cycles, whether that's, we say we want to break generational curses, we want to build generational wealth. And you and I both know, we ask all the time. A mentor of mine told me once, he said, Rocky, do you think you're a generational breaker? And so I kind of paused and I was like, well, I don't know what you mean. So tell me what you mean first, and then I'll tell you whether or not I think that I am. And he said, are you doing something, anything in your life that the people before you didn't do? And I said, well, absolutely. And he said, then can I remind you of something? He's in his mid-60s. He said, can I remind you of something? I was probably in my mid-30s. I said, sure. He said, can I remind you that as a generational breaker, you are absolutely going to make it up as you go, but don't convince yourself that that means that you're faking it. And so I said, hold on a second, let me get my pen out real quick because I don't think I caught that. Let me write that one down. I said, tell me that again. He said, just because you're doing something for the first time, you're absolutely making it up as you go. But that doesn't have to mean that you're faking it if you'll get out of your own way and you're willing to. And then he said this. He said, every person I've ever met is ignorant. Never met a person who wasn't ignorant. Ignorance simply defined as there's something we don't know. He said, but every person has a choice every day when they wake up to live in ignorant arrogance or ignorant humility. You can live out of ignorant arrogance, which says there may be things I don't know, but I don't need to know them because I'm fine. Or ignorant humility that says there's plenty that I don't know, and I wonder what I can know today to help me get to where I want to be tomorrow. So I got a question for you. I'm gonna try to dig deep here. You talked about things we are breaking. January 2025. Seemingly from the outside, people are looking in. My guy Edward, I like to call you Edward Pritchett because your name rolls real smooth off the tongue and before first and last. So people are going. They look you up on YouTube. They see your social, they see what you're doing, they see what you're doing in your business, they see the agency you built. They look, I mean, all intents purposes, my guy's got it figured out. What is an area right now that you would say, I know this is an area that I have to be diligent, that I'm still breaking? Like an area that I'm still working on a daily basis, weekly basis. Edward's got to look in the mirror and go, all tips, tricks, great on podcasts. Where's a place that you're going, man, I still got to focus on this area. This is an area I'm still trying to break.
Well, I know who would call me out very quickly if I didn't say this one first, but it's my relationship with my wife, my kids, my family.
Tell me about that.
I think one of the things that we tell ourselves as men to a certain degree is like, there are those stereotypical roles. And if I provide a great life for my family, I've done what I was supposed to do, right? It's a model that we see. It's a model that some wish, like, well, if my dad would have just provided, then things would have been better. We push, like we work so hard. One of the stories I tell myself is the reason I work so hard, the reason I spend the hours that I do spend, the reason I travel as much as I do, I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for my 4 kids. I'm doing it for my wife. I am doing it so that they can have a certain level of life. But, you know, when we were living back in North Carolina in 2018 in a 1, 2, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom farmhouse on 17 acres right outside of Asheville, North Carolina, that was great. That was nice, right? Like, I didn't need, like, did we need more than that? Did my family need a bigger house? Did they need? No, they didn't, right? But what I'm telling myself is like, oh no, they deserve more. They deserve better. They deserve bigger. So I go out and work harder and I use it's them. And then I go out and I put so much energy into my business, so much energy into talking to people, so much energy into writing a book, so much energy into social media and this and that. And I get home at 5:30 and guess who doesn't have as much energy anymore? Mm-hmm. When 4 kids come running saying, hey, daddy's home, right? So it's like I've had to, and I'm lucky, I'm blessed. My son is 9, my eldest is 9, my youngest 2 are 5. I haven't messed up too bad yet, but like there could have been a way, like if I hadn't have recognized that, like, again, wealth isn't just the finances, right? I don't want to build some amazing legacy business and then 20 years from now, my kid's like, I hate that business. It just took you away from me all the time. I don't want to be around it. That's not why I'm building it, right? So it's having that ability to say, okay, part of why I'm building and doing what I'm doing, part of that is, again, ego-driven. I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. Like I have to be able to be honest with that. I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. It gives me worth, right? It's what I'm creating, right? Man or woman, like we all like to create something. If you're an artist, maybe it's your art. If you're a business person, if you're an engineer, like we all want to create something. And so this is my creation piece, but then I also have this other creation piece, my family, that I can neglect for the sake of my personal passion. Being able to keep that awareness around that and say, you know what, I'm not giving you all everything of me, right? Like I'm not giving my agents everything. I'm not giving the multifamily property stuff everything. It can have some, but there's a certain point I have to reserve because they deserve everything that they should be getting too. Yeah. So that's one of those areas where it's like, I would say the first 5 years of my son's life, I was head down, really in my bit, traveling so much, neglecting my personal health and everything else.
Mm.
I started to wake up. There was a moment I started to wake up again. There's some defining moments that I can think back to on that. One was I was on a trip to DC with my wife and my son, and I'm entertaining insurance folks and like going out, having fun, partying, stuff like that. And I come back and had been drinking too much, and my wife was like, "Is this what this is going to be like for our family? Like we have our son now. Like, yeah, you bring us on the trip, but like, are we here with you, or are we just right?" And I had to wake up then. That was one. That was one. Like, there's been others. Right? Like, I didn't just totally get that didn't fix everything. That started the process. It was like, oh, okay. So after that, it was 5 years before I drank again. After that moment, right? There's been other things.
Sure.
Because it's a continual growth process. I haven't been the father of a 9 going on 10-year-old before. So I'm having to learn. I'm ignorant of how to be a father to
That's
a
right.
10-year-old.
That's right.
Open to learn. Like, I can't just say, well, I know how to be your dad. I don't.
That's right.
I have to
Yeah.
work on that.
No,
I have
I'm
to
with,
be
I'm,
intentional on that.
yeah. I mean, we are the same. Oh, you and me, I didn't realize this. We're the same age. Our kids are the exact same age and so on. I literally sat on the edge of my son's bed 2 nights ago and had to say like, hey, I need you to understand that every time daddy says to you, hey, can you just give me a minute? Hey, can you just give me a second? I'm not saying, will you please get away from me? I'm not saying I want to not be with you. I'm simply saying I want to be with me. And daddy spent his whole life trying to figure out how he can say that I want to be with me because I haven't always wanted to be with me. So I know that may not be easy for you to understand. And if it helps you for me to change my words, and when I need a break and I can't just play baseball and then basketball and then dinner and then back to back to back to back, and I just want 10 minutes with mommy, will it help you if I say, hey, I would like to have 10 minutes with me, as opposed to telling you that I need 10 minutes away from you? Does that sound different to you? And he said, it sounds totally different. And I said, okay. I said, Ezra, I've never had to have this conversation before. So I appreciate the chance that I get to have it with you. But if there's something I'm going to break, if there's something I'm going to do differently that wasn't done for me, I think it's easy for us, back up. It's easy for me to look at the things that I didn't have, see that I am doing them, and call it quits. I think it's easy for us to say, look at all the things that I'm doing in my life for my family that were not done for me when I was young. They should be grateful for it. I'm at least doing this. And then we sort of like tie a bow on it, right? You get what you get and don't throw a fit, When the reality is, to your point, life is daily. Like the only life that you and I have to live, and I'm not trying to be too philosophical here, but the only life we have to live is the one that we are living as we speak today, as the sun is up today. That's it. Because yesterday, that bad boy's gone. No matter what, like it's over. And tomorrow, I hope I wake up, right? I think there's really, really important amidst all the things that are good and beautiful and success and wealth and creation and revenue streams, like you said, specifically for you, as a role, as your role of husband, and your role as father, and then friend, and then family, we get tied to a very narrow view of manhood. We get tied to a very narrow view of provider, protector. We could go down a list of what those things are. I try to tell myself as often as I need to, which we don't have to talk about how often that is, but we'll just say it has to be often, that like I have a rule in our house that dad doesn't travel more than 24 times a year. I can leave home 24 total times. That's on average twice a month, ideally not back-to-back weeks, because our family doesn't function well when dad's gone for 2 weeks in a row, right? Not 2 full weeks, but 3 days and then 3 days. So that's my rule. Now, I know that that's not great for business. I know that that's not great for scaling. I know that's not great for booking 60 gigs a year. It's not, as a matter of fact, it's impossible, right? And how dare we, and I'll say we because I know you're in the space with me, how dare we stand on stage in front of thousands of people a year and tell them to love and believe what they love and believe most, and not jeopardize what they love most while we stand on a stage and jeopardize what we love most. Who are we, right? So I think there's a component of that. There's a portion of that for us that, and I so appreciate what you were sharing to go, I know who doesn't care about our YouTube channel, and that's our kids. I know who doesn't care about who thinks we were great on the show, and that's our spouses. And that's not because they don't love us.
Yeah.
That's because that's not why they are with us. Like they love us because they choose to, and they want to know that we choose the same thing. And it can be
Yeah.
difficult when we believe maybe I'm making a question for him. I won't tell you what I think yet. How have you found, outside of the measurements that most naturally we jump to, so outside of the money I bring home, outside of the confidence I can provide because they don't have to worry about groceries, the things that like, how have you, if you have, how have you created any other type of metric for yourself as it relates to, is Edward Pritchett being and becoming the man that he wants to be and become for the next decade? Is there anything you have found thus far? And to say no is totally appropriate. We can go into it together, that you measure that are not related to money in the bank, security, because we can measure it, cars. And none of those things are wrong, by the way, because I like all those things as well. Is there anything else you have found to measure that helps you say, am I or am I not on track to continue to become who I want to become in 10 years from now?
Again, blessed to be able to say yes to that question. About 6 years ago, I started doing, Tony Robbins has his Awaken the Giant Within. He kind of took the book and made like a 2-hour, 30-minute audiobook it's basically just a workshop of it. As you go through, he has you come up with 4 goals in 4 different areas. So your career goal, personal goal, adventure goal, and contribution goal. And so I've done that instead of New Year's resolutions, I do that. I invite my team, any members of my team that work with me to attend, and we just do it together. You can do it on your own. It's on Audible, but we just do that together. Specifically in the career goals, we measure that's the money, that's how big the business is, stuff like that. But being able to really think about, like, am I growing and becoming who I'm wanting to be every single year, and being able to measure that over time? Because it's not just about, like, there's the one that you're going to work on that year, but there's also, like, you just write out, like, anything that you're wanting to do personally, like your own personal growth. You being a better father is on my list, right? And it has you give some time frames to that and things, and then you work on that over time. Contribution, like, what am I actually giving to the world that I'm in, right? And being able to track and measure that over, right? For me now, it's been a 6-year period of time. One of my adventure goals last year, or actually it was on the list 2 years ago, but it was to take our family and go spend a summer in Europe. We got to check that one off the list last summer. We spent 9 weeks over in Europe between France, Switzerland, Italy, and like absolutely just amazing experiential moment for me, just because I got to do the little check mark, but then to do it with my family in that way. So that's like, right now, that's what I've been using as that metric. But it's very easy. Like, when we're setting those goals for the year, it's so easy to just go with the financial goals. How much money am I going to make? How much bigger is the business going to be? What car I'm going to get, right? Like, what this, that, or the other. But to spend some intentional time saying, okay, like, one of my personal goal this year is to be fluent in Spanish by the end of this year. I've lived in Puerto Rico for 6 years and I'm not fluent in Spanish. Took Spanish in college, but it's like, this year, what am I doing? That's going to make me a better person. There's another 22% of the world population that I will truly be able to communicate. I can kind of get by, but like, I want to communicate with more people. That makes me a better individual, in my opinion, right? So being able to have those kind of goals and being very intentional about those and setting them, and then working on a game plan. It's not like I'm going to do this over the course of the year. Like, I know what I'm going to do. I was so mad, Rocky, the other day. My Spanish app, I was 17-day streak, man. 17-day streak. And then Saturday, we had to go do a little family project. Just forgot to get on there. Woke up on Sunday and streak is over. Like, okay, here's what I'm doing. And so it's that. I actually met with, today here in this office, my Spanish tutor came for the first time, and we got a chance to talk, work out our game plan, and start planning out, so that it's not just by the end of the year, it's now, what am I doing? How am I taking time out of my day to make sure that this happens, right? And the familial one, that's a part of it as well. Like, when am I going to be around? And, after what you just shared right there, which I certainly appreciated, my wife and I are headed to Mexico next week. And part of that trip, we're going to take one of those days and just do our goal, that we don't do it at the beginning, end of the, it's Christmas holiday for kids. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We could always find this time in the January, 1st of February, to get away for a little while. And that's where we just spend that time saying, okay, what are the goals that we're aligned on and where are we not aligned? And what do I need to do so that I can meet your expectations? How often do I need to be around given, here are the key travel things that I would like to do, but before they're locked in stone, I want to make sure that we both agree. Because if she's at home with 4 kids and I'm out wherever, I need to make sure that she's supportive of that, right? Like I want her speaking for, like, we all know why that, and we laid this out. We know, and he's gonna be back, and when he's back, like we have intentional travel here in Puerto Rico where we're exploring the island together as a family. So usually every 6 to 8 weeks, we take a weekend and we go somewhere. Just my phone stayed, there's no work, and we're just hanging out with other families, exploring the island together, building that family time. So that's how I'm not just judging. If I can set goals for my business, I can set goals in those other areas of my life. And then it's how does your schedule reflect what you care about? Look at somebody's calendar and tell you, like, people hate looking at mine because it's color coded and there's all this, like, that's crazy. It works for me. Like,
listen, you appreciate
I know what same colors of business, like that's
same. I mean, I joke all the time. I always ask my team, like, hey, can you see the same thing that I see? And they're like, we can't see your colors. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But just so you know, they are color coded, so I know where things are. So we're in that same lane. Okay, let's do this and we'll wrap it up here, Edward. I so appreciate your time today. If there was something, and again, I want you to think through it, and I will just use your oldest because you and I have that kids that are the same age. So we'll think about our oldest and let's pretend their birthday, we recently had their birthday and their birthday's a year from now. Okay. So if you could think through whenever your oldest is and at the end of their next birthday, wrap up the birthday party, had a great time, everybody's left, it's kind of calmed down a little bit. Here comes to you and there's a little bit of cake left and they say, Dad, you want to have some more cake? You know what? Let's do it. And it worked out twice a day. Let's go get that cake. So we get an extra piece of cake. It's just you and them. It's their 10th birthday. If there was something they were going to say about you, about who you were or what you did, at this point, it's their 10th birthday and they're thinking, man, like, I love my dad. And I love my dad because what do you hope that you do in the next 12 months that when you get to have that extra slice of cake, what do you hope it is that they're saying about their father?
Good question. I kind of get to cheat on this one a little bit. My son would bless me probably about 6 months ago. He took my phone and while I don't even know where I was, what I was doing, but the phone was off where it's supposed to be when I'm at the house. And he recorded a video talking about, like, who his dad is. Right? I didn't prompt him to do it for whatever reason. He just decided to do that. And, one of the things that he said was that my dad works for us. Right? He said it with that belief of a child that, like, I know that's how it's coming across. Right? Because it could come across in other ways because I know how that can come across. He talked about that he sees me take time for myself. Sometimes you just got to sit outside and enjoy nature and just be. I love the fact that my son has seen me. We go out, we go hiking, and I'm like, let's take off our shoes. Let's get grounded with the earth and let's just be here in this moment, right? So it's those things. And I think, as he hits this 10-year-old stage, if, my dad is blazing a trail that I get to choose to follow, while equipping me to be able to blaze the trail that I want to go on. He is able to say that, my dad not only works for us as a family, but he works for himself. He works because he has that level of worth and wants to have that worth in who he is. He's going to be proud of himself, just like he wants me to be proud of myself. Because that's one thing that my kids say, hey, what do you think about this? I don't always do it, but I try to respond, what do you think about what you just did or what you just created? So those would be the two things. The biggest one being that part of my journey is to blaze a trail that he does get to follow, create new generational habits, but not create the perfect generational habits, right? Because he's going to get to create newer generational habits for the generations that are coming after him. And I want him to know that that's part of his mission, and that can be along the same line that I'm going, or maybe it's somewhere totally different. Right? I got 4 of them, So some might as well go different than me.
That's right.
good.
That's
That'd
right.
be great. And I'm
That's right.
excited to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then just to be able to say, you know what, I'm proud of me. That I'm learning from my father to be proud of myself of what I'm doing without having to worry about how other people perceive it or view it.
Yeah.
If he's getting to that place where he can start speaking those back and that's what he's saying that he's happy for and is being imparted to him, then I'm doing a pretty good job at that point.
Yeah.
And just keep on seeing how we can improve on it.
I love that. Edward, I appreciate your candor, your willingness to really help us, I think, see the things in us that we know. There are plenty of things to measure that don't always have a number. There are plenty of things to measure that don't always have that Google sheet on them. There's plenty of things to measure. I think if we're looking to be the kind of people in our case, the fathers, husbands, men that we want to be, our capacity to be able to do that in a way that creates the kind of space for us to take a step back and say, okay, amongst all the things that the public would give me praise for, where in my own self am I finding to be proud of my own purpose? And I think we tend to stretch for the praise rather than we stretch for the purpose, because one is short-term and one is long-term. And so again, I only know you briefly, but I was with what I can say and know, and I just want to encourage you, because I think anytime there's an opportunity to share and speak life to somebody else, then you got to kind of jump at it like, as somebody who's similar age, similar kids, similar so on, like you're doing it and you'll continue to do it. And as long as you continue to show up every day, the only thing you have to do is show up. You'll continue to do it. You know, you're already reaping the reward with the 4 kids you have and the wife you have and their ability to communicate to you what they see. They don't lie. Kids don't lie about what they see in the people they love. Sometimes they're an incredible mirror for our ability to recognize maybe Edward is who he says that he is, and maybe he is doing the things that he says that he's doing. Sometimes it takes our kids to remind us of what those things are. So I so appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us for a great conversation with my guy, Edward Pritchett. We got to hit him with the first and the last name. As you go through and listen, I hope the story that you heard was challenging you, inspiring you. I hope it's something that are reminding you of what's possible, that you can build the life you want. You can marry personal conviction and professional ambition. And the intersection of those two things for you is going to be unique and specific, but you are capable of seeing it and knowing it and pursuing it. I so appreciate you. And always remember, do your best to be seen, be known, and lead well. Until next time, Rocky Garza here. When life gets hard, prove it. Thank you, my man. Thank you for tuning into this powerful conversation with Edward Pritchett. I hope his story challenged you, inspired you, and really reminded you of what's possible when we allow ourselves to be a full human being and lead with authenticity. If this episode resonates with you and you're at a place in your journey where you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, I would love to invite you to join me for our upcoming workshop, Leading Without Losing Yourself. In this workshop, we're going to dive deep into tools, strategies, and clarity that you need in order to lead with purpose and confidence. And this is not about corporate jargon. It's about real actionable growth that works for you and your team. So spots are limited. So head over to rockygarza.com/confidence. Again, that's rockygarza.com/confidence, and you can secure your spot there. As always, remember to be seen, be known, and lead well. Until next time, I'm Rocky Garza, and when life gets hard, prove it.